The western and southern regions of Africa are home to two of the biggest economies on the continent. These are the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the Republic of South Africa. In this episode, we compare the two economies to understand their relative performance, strengths, weaknesses, similarities, and differences. If you are new to the channel, please consider subscribing to support us, and to ensure you never miss such insightful videos. As always, this comparison relies on data from the IMF as of October 2024, and the Observatory for Economic Complexity, to ensure objectivity and reliability. With regard to the size of the economies, Nigeria has a GDP of $199.72 billion. In comparison, South Africa's GDP stands at $403.05 billion. South Africa's economy is therefore bigger by about $203 billion, effectively doubling that of Nigeria in size. The GDP per capita of the two nations also differ significantly. Nigeria's GDP per capita stands at $877.07 compared to South Africa's $6,380. Therefore, in addition to the huge GDP difference, the per capita incomes further stress the disparity. As a result, the World Bank classifies South Africa as an upper middle-income economy while Nigeria remains a lower middle-income economy. Nigeria and South Africa have slower economic growths, especially when compared to relatively smaller economies like Rwanda, Niger, Ethiopia, and Senegal. The annual GDP growth rate of Nigeria is 2.9%, compared to South Africa's 1.1%. Despite their sizes, both countries are experiencing relatively slow growth. Though Nigeria dominates in economic growth rate, South Africa performs much better with regard to managing inflation. This difference is evident in Nigeria's average annual inflation rate of 32.5%, which is much higher than South Africa's inflation rate of 4.7%. Essentially, Nigeria's inflation crisis is approximately 7 times worse than that of South Africa. Nigeria performs better with regard to managing public debt despite the high inflation rate. In particular, Nigeria's public debt stands at 51.3% of the GDP, which is significantly lower than South Africa's, which stands at 75% of the GDP. These rates are however higher than those of other notable economies like Ethiopia and Tanzania. With regard to trade, both nations significantly depend on mineral exports. The top exports from Nigeria include crude petroleum, petroleum gas, nitrogenous fertilizer, refined petroleum, and gold. Similarly, South Africa's top exports include gold, platinum, coal, cars, and diamonds. Consequently, in terms of total exports value, Nigeria ranks 51st globally at $70.7 billion, while South Africa ranks 34th at about $147 billion. In that regard, South Africa significantly outperforms Nigeria in terms of exports. Summarily, when comparing the two nations, Nigeria's economic strengths lie in the higher GDP growth rate and lower public debt, while the main weakness is the high inflation rate. As for South Africa, the strengths lie in the size of the economy, the per capita income, lower inflation rate, and higher value of exports. However, the country's higher public debt is a notable weakness. Overall, both countries have slow economic growth and depend on mineral exports. However, they have different GDP and GDP per capita. They also differ with regard to inflation rate and exports value, each with a different aspect of dominance. Which of these economies do you think is performing better? Please leave a comment below including questions, clarifications, and suggestions.